I've talked to quite a lot of people today about you, and the question which they keep asking me to ask you is, why do you keep doing these things? You throw yourself into something, which is great, and we love to watch it, and I don't know, someone tries to kill you or something like that. Why do you keep going back and doing them?
It is an interesting thing, and it's something my mum could never understand. My dad was a test pilot in the days when test pilots were doing dangerous things. It was before computers and very good models of how a plane should behave. So he was at the cutting edge, and that was very difficult for my mum because he was developing planes like the Vampire, which was a military plane, the Vulcan bomber, these things, and there were terrible accidents. But my dad was always okay, but my mum was she's finding it very, very difficult. And then as soon as my dad retired, I started doing what I do. And so my mum has always had this question, why do men in general do this? Whether it is genetic, whether I just copied my dad and felt I needed to push myself to the edge, whether I inherited some gene that... I don't know. I've never understood. I don't really look back too much at what is my impulse to go, but I am someone who needs to push themselves. And I was thinking about that the other day, and someone said, "Oh, you've almost died 6 times." And I thought to myself, it shouldn't be about how many times you've died, it's about how many times you've lived. And I hope it's something positive, that I'm just questing after life. And I do feel I live life much fuller when I am really up against it, really aware of the environment, the world around you. And that is, I think, my drive. It is partly a childish curiosity, and we all have that curiosity, and I think we all are explorers. We all want to understand the world. So I've got that. So I think you could say I haven't grown up, or you could just say I've retained that desire to understand the world. But there's something more than that. It's a drive, and you couldn't keep on a career like mine, or a life like mine, without having a real need, as opposed to just a desire. And I don't know what it is, but it seems to be inherent in me, and I think my dad had it too.
We've talked about looking back at the past. Do you have any major regrets?
They're more at a personal level. The agony I put my mum through, and I mentioned how difficult it was for her to be married to a test pilot and then have a son who risked his life. And it's that level. I think my mum was proud of me, her friends say. She's died now, but I feel she never saw me with any great success in my career. She just saw me as someone pushing themselves to the limit, going through extraordinary ceremonies. I've got initiation scars up and down my chest and back from a crocodile initiation ceremony. I think she found it very hard to understand why that should happen. But I think I don't regret that. I don't regret really anything I've done on expeditions, except that I think I could have hung around longer in certain places and recorded more. And I just am very sad knowing that these environments have been devastated, some of them now, and the people themselves have gone now. And I sometimes think I should have just stayed an extra month and recorded more before moving on. And I sometimes thought my career is too much about me and not enough about the people who I'm learning from. I think that's another level. But I'm hoping as I get older I'll be able to reflect more and enrich my expression of these people in later years. But it's very difficult to actually sustain a career and keep on doing what you're doing unless you are concentrating on yourself quite a bit. So it has been a very selfish career to a degree, and that I don't particularly like, but I also see it as necessary.
I think you've given a lot of people an insight into lots of experiences we'd never be able to get for ourselves.
Yeah, I hope so, and I certainly have seen that as my justification for going, because I think someone like me has to justify it. I don't think it's any good, as I said earlier, seeing the world like a playground. I don't think it's good enough anymore. So I'm quite sort of serious about that side, but as I say, I sometimes think it's a little bit too much about me as a which is why I like writing more than telly. I think telly is a sensationalistic way of communicating, and books, there's so many more layers in writing.
You've been to places like Costa Rica, New Guinea, everywhere, but it's quite a generic question, but which has been your favourite place?
Oh, that is quite hard, because I prefer deserts than jungles. Jungles I found very hard. I've had a lot of bad experiences in rainforest, in jungles, and I think that's probably skewed my perception of them. But in the forest, you're always the odd one out. So although I love the Amazon, I think it's so exciting to be amongst all these amazing species. It's also, if you're really alone there, and if you're really vulnerable, which I've been for months in the Amazon, it's a terrifying place because you're always the odd one out. Whereas if you're in a desert, you somehow feel special. You feel like you're not competing with all these other species that belong there. You feel like all life is precious. And I remember coming across a snake in the Namib and thinking, wow, it's another life form. And then I thought, ooh, hold on, it could bite me, and that could be the end of me. So I just sort of stepped back again. But I just felt not quite a love, but just a new appreciation of life, seeing this snake. And so I think the Namib was my first real desert, and it was the first time I really savoured life, the life around me. And I still have very, very fond memories of it. So I think deserts are my favourite, and the Namib in particular.
Okay.